You can always compete if you're good at the footballing aspects of EAFC, no matter the meta. What's up guys, Big Fez here with an updated guide on how to play like a top 1% player no matter the meta. The reason I've remade this video is in the description below. Last year I peaked at an 850 skill rating during an FGS qualifier season while only playing on the weekends, focusing mainly on having fun playing my style. My style being the tips I'm going to share with you. All of the examples in this video are taken straight out of my stream to show you that they can be used online and against high level players. Now the reason these tips are effective is because yes, while FIFA is a game, in its essence it's still football. And the basic fundamentals that apply to real football are applicable in FIFA. You can always compete if you're good at the footballing aspects of EAFC, no matter the meta. In this guide, I'll be going through some of the basic fundamentals in football in regards to passing, creating space, and attacking. One of the most common mistakes I see people do is that they play out of habit and routine. There's no thought in why they're doing what they're doing. I love this quote from Guardiola. He says, "I loathe all that passing for the sake of it. You have to pass the ball with a clear intention with the aim of making it into the opposition's goal. It's not about passing for the sake of it. Passing is how you progress up the field. Doing it with a purpose and clear intention is how you force your opponent to make a mistake." In these two examples, one is playing with purpose and one isn't. Purpose shows. In the first example, the attacker is waiting for the defender to make a mistake. The defender doesn't have to do anything though because the attacker isn't really threatening, he's just passing it around. The pressure lies on the attacker to make things happen. Whereas in the second example, the attacker is constantly forcing the defender to make a decision. The attacker is putting pressure on the defender, telling him either you react to what I'm doing or I'm through. Having to make the correct decisions and many decisions quickly is where you force your opponent to make mistakes, which is what happens and we score. If you want to have a purpose, you need to know what options your player has before you pass him. If you don't have an idea of what to do when the ball gets to a specific player, then that option is more than likely bad. Now in this example, as soon as I win the ball, I realize I've got a great counter opportunity. To not risk it with the long ball, I immediately decide to play it on one touch. I've got a lot of space to move into if I decide to turn and dribble, but the ball is always going to be faster than my own players. To make it go as quickly as possible, I've already decided what I want to do before I pass the ball. 2 touches that allow me to attack my opponent in a 3v1. Knowing my options here make it so I can attack and punish my opponent quickly. Knowing your option is based around your awareness. How often you scan the pitch is how you improve that. The easiest way to do it is when the ball is in between 2 players during a pass. That's when you can take the time and check around to see which players are open. Another time you can look around is when you pass it to a player in which your opponent isn't really close to. This gives you a small window to look around and see where all your players are. On top of that, the radar is always available for everyone. There are 2 main principles to moving your opponent around. The first one is passing the ball, and the second is the movement of your own players. Passing to move around your opponent and open up passing lanes or opening up space is a great way of finding purpose in your passing. This in turn forces your opponent to react to what you're doing. Now in this example, our player is facing the wrong way. His options are only backwards. However, if we look at the other side of the pitch, his players are further down. This means that we want to attack the space in between our opponent's players. We quickly shift the ball over to the other side, which forces him to run after us. And when his players have moved to that side, you can see a nice line has opened up for Wan-Bissaka to take the ball and just move into the space we want to attack. This is what we wanted to achieve by moving our opponent. We've now created a 3 versus 2 on the right side of the pitch. On to the second principle, movement of your own players. A very common mistake people make is that they see a player making a run and they tunnel vision on passing that player. A player making a run is only telling you I'm an option. You do not have to pass me the ball. Now the reason I mention this is because many people focus on the player making a run, missing the shadow that run creates. Sometimes the purpose of a run isn't to get the ball, rather it's to open up space for teammates to take advantage of. After we release the ball, we'll make him go on a run. Pay attention to how my opponent follows that run, which opens up space for us to move into. This gives us enough time to move up freely and we find a nice through ball to the striker. All of this which gets started by the space that opened up by the wingback making a run. You want to look for options that are unmarked. This seems pretty obvious in theory, however many people get tunnel vision in game while trying to get up the field. Even if it's backwards, look for the unmarked option. It's crucial, however, to keep in mind that we're looking for unmarked options and not unmarked players. I want to highlight this difference because a player under pressure, a player surrounded, or a player marked only from one side can still be a good option. Don't be afraid to pass it to someone even if he has opponents nearby. As long as you have an idea on what to do when the ball reaches him, the play can still be made. A quick example, we've got one player that is surrounded by 3 opponents. However, that doesn't mean he's a bad option. Even though he's technically marked by 3 players, he's still able to be an option and move the ball. Making a marked option to an unmarked option is all about timing and slight angles. By having that patience for half a sec or slightly looking to change your angle could open up options for you that weren't there initially. In this example, McAllister goes for a run, but the player with the ball is facing away from it, which means that he's now a marked option if the pass were to go through. Turning slightly, we've made McAllister go from a marked option to an unmarked option, and we get a goal out of it. Another common mistake I see is trying to force a pass, not taking into consideration if that pass is possible to make. Is the pass natural for the player? You should strive to make sure every pass you make is in the direction your player is facing, even if that means you have to take an extra touch or two and therefore lose that passing option. It's better to lose the opportunity for a pass and starting over than making a bad pass and losing the ball. This also means passing backwards is optimal in some instances. Now, this is especially important whenever the game doesn't pass the ball to where you want to. It could be it goes behind the player instead of in front, or it could be it goes to the wrong player completely. Your first instinct in these situations should be to pass it towards the direction your player is facing. This is to make sure you still keep the ball and can start over, than risk losing it because the game didn't pass it to where you intended to. So in this example, I've decided that I want to try to make a 1-2 with my 2 strikers. However, when Graham passes the ball, it goes to the right side of the striker. If I want to pass it in a natural direction, there's an easy first time pass towards a player coming in, which makes it into a 3v2. However, tunnel vision on my original idea, I try to force a pass to the other side, which obviously gets intercepted. You can pass a 1-touch whenever you want, but there is one specific scenario that first touch passes are really important, and that's when you're making passes a short distance. The reason is when you're making a short pass, you're keeping the pitch small, which means it's easy for your opponent to keep pressing. If you have to take a touch on a short pass, you're inviting your opponent to challenge the ball, especially with the fact that he wasn't far away to begin with. The ball is always going to be faster than your players. Using patterns, triangles, and natural direction to turn with your passing instead of dribbling sets you in favorable positions against your opponent. You remove the ability for your opponent to challenge for the ball because there's no turn for him to challenge. This makes it so you're facing towards your opponent's goal whenever you decide to dribble. And this lets you keep your tempo in your game because you don't have to slow down to turn anywhere. This is the foundation of my passing. You see a player in a good position, you believe that the ball might be intercepted. Look for someone that has a better opportunity to reach that player without as much risk. That someone is the third man. I'll show you some quick examples of what I mean. In this clip, I'll show you 2 examples. So initially, as soon as Musiala gets the ball, we see Brandt as a potential option. However, there are 4 defenders surrounding Musiala, and the pass there is not 100% guaranteed. So what we look to do is move out of that space and find someone else that can reach it. We need to find the third man. As we manage that, we notice that the 2 players my opponents are controlling are moving towards Brandt, which means they've opened up space on the other side. The one to use that space most efficiently is Sam Kerr. However, a pass to her is very hard. Instead, we look for the third man again. When we notice that Sam Kerr is moving up towards that space, that's when we look for the third man. Firstly, we have the wing connection. We pass the ball to the winger, who passes it back to the wing back, and then the winger goes for a run. This forces the defender to make a choice. Either he follows the run and leaves space for the wingback to move up, or he decides to press the wingback, which opens up a pass to the winger. You've got triangles. Triangles are something that are learned almost everywhere, and all of the earlier tips incorporated into one pattern. They help you turn with passing. They're a good example of the third man. They're a good example of purpose. They're a good example of passing in the direction you're facing. This pattern, however, is an extension of the triangles. It's looking for diamonds in your gameplay. Now take a look at this example. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 players that basically form a diamond. By looking to play them, you're basically playing it around your opponent. If some of you have played real football, this is very similar to those rondos in training. As long as you can identify 4 players that can make something similar to a diamond, it's still applicable and you're still able to play through them and eventually create a chance, which we do. It is impossible for anyone to pay attention to all of these things at the same time. However, it's easy to focus on one of these tips, make it become an instinct, and then you move on to the next one. But yeah, I don't have anything more for this guide. If you have any questions, drop a comment and I'll do my best to answer. I do stream my games on Twitch if you want to catch up outside of the videos. But until next time, I hope this is helpful and have a good day.